Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air change, but no one said a word? Someone enters, they don't raise their voice, they don't demand attention, and yet every head turns, every conversation pauses. Why? It's not charisma, it's not status, and it's definitely not luck. It's perception. You see, the most powerful people in the world rarely shout. They don't chase approval. They shape it, they don't fight for control, they guide outcomes with such subtlety that people believe the idea was theirs all along. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But those who truly understand power know that real influence doesn't come from being feared or loved. It comes from being perceived as essential. Power is not what you do, it's what people believe you're capable of. In a world flooded with voices shouting, selling, screaming to be seen, the ones who move silently are the ones we follow. They know that visibility without perception is noise, but when perception is crafted intentionally, that's when influence becomes inevitable. This video isn't about gaining followers, it's about unlocking the silent force that makes people lean in when you speak, that makes your presence felt long before your words are heard. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what's true, it matters what's believed to be true. And if you can control that belief, you don't just influence people, you shape the world they live in. We've been taught that intelligence is about facts, that being smart means knowing the right answer, having the best degree, speaking the loudest in a meeting. But here's a truth they never taught you in school. The most powerful form of intelligence isn't IQ, it's strategic intelligence. Strategic intelligence is the quiet force behind every great leader, every successful disruptor, every person who moves the world without ever seeming to push. It's the ability to see not just the game, but the players, the pieces, and the pressure points all at once. It's not about being the smartest in the room. It's about reading the room before anyone else knows the conversation has begun. Strategic intelligence means understanding human motivation so deeply you can guide decisions without uttering a single directive. It's sensing when someone needs validation more than data. It's knowing when silence will say more than strategy. It's the art of influence played through intuition, sharpened by pattern recognition. You see, most people speak to be heard. The strategically intelligent speak to be felt. They don't argue, they align, they don't force, they flow. Imagine this: two candidates walk into a room. One has the credentials, the other understands the invisible architecture of power. Guess who wins? It's always the one who knows how people work, not just how systems work. Because systems change. Rules shift, but human nature. It's the oldest code on Earth. In today's world, technical skills are baseline. But if you want to lead movements, close, impossible deals, shift culture, or simply command respect without ever asking for it, you must master strategic intelligence. And the most beautiful part, it's not something you're born with. It's something you build quietly, deliberately, until one day you walk into a room and everything bends around your presence, not because you demanded it, but because you designed it that way. We like to think of ourselves as rational beings. We weigh pros and cons. We make lists. We analyze. We vote, buy, love, and leave based on what we believe to be logical conclusions. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most human behavior isn't logical. It's emotional, cleverly disguised as reason. The brain doesn't work like a courtroom. It works like a theater. Behind every decision we make, what job we take, who we trust, what we buy, even what we believe, there's a flicker of feeling. A fear we won't admit, a longing we don't fully understand, a trigger that was pulled long before we even recognized it was there. People don't act to gain pleasure. They act to avoid pain. That's why fear works faster than hope. That's why politicians don't just promise change. They warn of catastrophe. That's why advertisers don't sell products. They sell the fear of missing out, of being left behind, of not belonging. And here's the secret few truly grasp. When you understand someone's emotional blueprint, you don't need to persuade them. You only need to echo what they already feel but cannot say. Influence, then, is not about domination. It's about resonance. You become the mirror they've been waiting to see themselves in. That's why facts don't change minds, but stories do. Metaphors do. Emotions do. You want to move people. Learn what they're afraid of, what they crave, what they'll do anything to protect. Because human beings don't follow logic. They follow meaning. They follow belonging. They follow the voice that says, "I see you." Strategic thinkers don't speak to the mind. They speak to the wound, to the desire, to the part of us that chooses first and rationalizes later. And if you can master that, you don't just win arguments, you win allegiance. Most people live their entire lives playing the visible game. They follow rules, they check boxes, they work hard, speak politely, and trust that merit will be rewarded. They think life is a fair contest, a level playing field where outcomes are earned through effort and virtue. But that's the surface game. And the truth, the real game, the one that decides promotions, partnerships, legacies, is played beneath the surface. Behind every system you see corporate, political, social, there's another layer. One governed not by policy, but by perception. Not by rules, but by relationships. Not by fairness, but by leverage. This is the game behind the game, and if you can't see it, you're not playing it, you're being played by it. Think of every room as a chessboard. The majority are pawns moved, positioned, sacrificed. But a very few, understand the terrain so well they move without being noticed. They shape outcomes without drawing attention. They influence the game without appearing to be in it. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Because while others obsess over doing more, the strategist focuses on doing what matters in the right moment, in the right room with the right players. They don't speak to everyone, they speak to the decision makers. They don't hustle for attention. They cultivate strategic visibility. They don't chase validation. They position themselves so that power seeks them out. And here's the truth, no one will tell you. Hard work is honorable, but influence moves faster. The game behind the game rewards those who know where the levers are and how to pull them without ever being seen. So ask yourself, are you spending your life trying to win the visible game? Or are you ready to step behind the curtain and learn how the real game is played? Because once you do, you'll never look at power the same way again. And you'll never be anyone's pawn again either. We live in a world obsessed with visibility. Followers likes public wins. The louder you are, the more powerful you must be, right? Wrong. Real influence doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows. The most transformative power in the world is not declared. It's designed quietly, intentionally through systems so seamless, most people don't even know they're in one. Think about it. Apple doesn't just sell computers, they sell identity. You're not buying a product, you're buying the feeling of being creative, elite, different. Religious leaders don't spread rules, they build tribes. They create belonging. So powerful people will die to defend it. And political movements, they don't win by logic, they win by emotion. They tap into a collective longing, a narrative of purpose, identity, and transformation. That's the invisible system. It's the ecosystem of meaning that wraps around every message, every brand, every belief. It's what turns a product into a symbol, a leader into a legend, a simple sentence into a personal truth. Most people are playing checkers on the board of visibility. Strategic minds are building the board itself. They ask deeper questions. How does this person want to feel? What do they fear losing? Where are the emotional touch points I can connect to without ever saying a word? Influence isn't about convincing people. It's about constructing a framework where your desired outcome becomes their idea. And when that happens, they don't resist, they don't question. They believe, not because you push them, but because you built the system they didn't even realize they were in. Perception isn't a side effect of power. It is the battlefield on which power is won or lost. Most people waste their energy trying to prove who they are. They chase credentials, titles, applause, believing that truth is enough, that if they just do the right thing, people will notice. But power doesn't follow truth. It follows belief. You could be the most qualified, most capable, most ethical person in the room and still be ignored if the perception doesn't match the reality. Why do you think some leaders command respect before they speak, while others have to fight for every ounce of credibility? Because one understood what Machiavelli wrote centuries ago. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. That sentence should haunt you. Because in our age of curated feeds and split-second impressions, how you're seen matters more than who you are. Your competence is filtered through image. Your intentions are interpreted through tone. Your presence is judged before your words ever land. That's not cynical, that's strategic truth. So here's the real question. Are you shaping your own perception or leaving it to chance? Strategic minds don't just work on being good, they work on being seen as essential. Not flashy, not desperate. Essential. They curate silence as carefully as words. They control access. They allow mystery because scarcity breeds intrigue and intrigue breeds power. Your image is not vanity, it's architecture. It's not about deceiving people. It's about understanding that in a world drowning in noise, your perceived signal determines your influence. And if you don't control how you're seen, someone else will, and they won't be generous with the pen. Influence isn't about reaching everyone. It's about reaching the right ones. In every room, every company, every movement, there are people who quietly hold the keys. They're not always the loudest, the flashiest, or the most decorated, but they're the ones others look to before they move, before they decide, before they say yes. Strategic operators know this, and they act accordingly. They don't scatter their energy like confetti, hoping to impress the masses. They scan the room like a radar, seeking out three kinds of people. The influencers, not social media stars, but the real ones. The ones whose nods validate ideas. The ones people glance at before forming an opinion. The amplifiers, those who don't just hear an idea, but spread it. They multiply messages through their networks like wildfire, often without being asked. The gatekeepers, the quiet controllers of access. They decide who gets into the room, who gets heard, and who gets left behind. Elena, a mid-level analyst at a startup, didn't climb the ranks by outperforming everyone. She mapped the ecosystem. She identified these keystones, and instead of performing for the crowd, she cultivated trust with them. Authentically, strategically, silently. Within 18 months, she wasn't just known, she was needed. Because when the influencers whispered, it was her name. When the amplifiers spoke, it was her ideas. When the gatekeepers opened the door, it was because she had earned their attention. You don't rise by being popular. You rise by being indispensable to the few who move the many. So before you speak, sell or strategize, ask yourself, who actually holds the levers in this room? Because the moment you stop performing for everyone and start positioning for someone, you stop chasing influence and start wielding it. Most people treat conflict like fire. Either they run from it or they charge straight into the flames. But the strategically intelligent, they do neither, because they know something most never learn. Conflict isn't a battle to win, it's a system to manage. Direct confrontation is rarely the smartest move. It provokes defenses, triggers egos, and burns bridges that may one day be needed. The most powerful players don't confront threats, they disarm them. Quietly, surgically, without leaving fingerprints. Take Jack Thompson. He wasn't the loudest executive. In fact, most people overlooked him in meetings, but when a rising star, charismatic, well-liked, and dangerously ambitious, began positioning for his seat at the table, Jack didn't fight back. He fractured the threat from within. He redirected the rival's energy toward projects that looked important, but led nowhere. He created gentle doubts in the minds of allies, never accusations, just subtle questions. He rewired the structure so that piece by piece, his opponent lost ground without ever realizing it. That's not manipulation, that's strategic neutralization. Because real power doesn't destroy it, renders opposition irrelevant. 3 tools in this arsenal. The fracture method. Expose tension inside a rival's network and let it pull itself apart. The redirection principle. Give your opponent the illusion of progress while quietly rerouting their momentum. Credibility deconstruction. Never attack head-on. Instead, plant doubt. Let silence do the heavy lifting. Machiavelli said, "A captain ought to make himself feared in such a way that he does not make himself hated." To master conflict is not to fight harder, it's to fight smarter. And sometimes it means never appearing to fight at all. Every decision people make, whether it's buying a product, choosing a leader, or walking away from a conversation, traces back to one thing. A psychological trigger was pulled. And the most influential people, they know how to pull those triggers without anyone ever noticing. Human beings are not guided by reason. We are guided by fear, desire, status, and the need to belong. Understand those levers, and you don't just influence someone's choice, you guide their journey. Start with the fear trigger. People are far more motivated to avoid pain than to chase pleasure. Show them what they might lose: time, respect opportunity, and they'll move mountains to avoid it. This is why urgency sells, why last chance always converts better than new offer. Then there's the status hack. Humans are status-seeking creatures whether they admit it or not. Give someone the chance to feel just a little more admired, respected, seen, and they'll follow you through fire. Why do luxury brands thrive? Not because of features, but because of feeling. And finally, the belonging instinct. We are tribal by design. Make someone feel like they're part of an exclusive group, like they've been chosen, and they will protect that identity. Like a sacred badge, that's how cults form. Movements rise, brands become belief systems. This isn't about manipulation, it's about awareness. About understanding that beneath every yes, every no, every moment of hesitation is a feeling waiting to be spoken to. Strategic minds don't talk at people, they speak to the quiet need behind the words. Because once you understand the psychology behind the curtain, You don't need to force anyone to act. You simply make the outcome feel like their own brilliant idea, and they'll thank you for it. Let's address the question that lingers beneath every conversation about influence. Isn't this manipulation? Not if you understand the difference between deception and strategy. Manipulation seeks to control for selfish gain, usually through lies, fear, or coercion. Strategic influence, on the other hand, is rooted in clarity, intention, and impact. It's the art of guiding outcomes ethically by understanding what people truly need even when they can't articulate it themselves. Machiavelli famously said, "The end justifies the means." It's a quote often misunderstood, used to defend cruelty, but real students of power know it isn't a license to harm. It's a call to consider consequences. Because ethics, at their core, are not static. They are situational. Rigid morality is a luxury for those with no responsibility. But when lives, systems, or futures are at stake, strategy becomes a moral responsibility. Think of the doctor who tells a patient just enough truth to inspire change, but not enough to paralyze them. Or the leader who reframes a harsh reality to protect morale while still guiding the team forward. Are they lying, or are they serving a higher outcome? Ethical strategy asks, what ripple does my decision create? What system does it affect? Who benefits, not just now, but 5 moves ahead? Because real power isn't about domination. It's about the courage to make decisions that matter, even when they are hard to explain to those who only see the surface. So no, this isn't manipulation. This is mastery with integrity. And in a world where so many wield power carelessly, your ability to lead with both insight and conscience, that's what makes you dangerous, in the best way. Let's address the question that lingers beneath every conversation about influence. Isn't this manipulation? Not if you understand the difference between deception and strategy. Manipulation seeks to control for selfish gain, usually through lies, fear, or coercion. Strategic influence, on the other hand, is rooted in clarity, intention, and impact. It's the art of guiding outcomes ethically by understanding what people truly need, even when they can't articulate it themselves. Machiavelli famously said, "The end justifies the means." It's a quote often misunderstood, used to defend cruelty, but real students of power know it isn't a license to harm. It's a call to consider consequences. Because ethics at their core are not static. They are situational. Rigid morality is a luxury for those with no responsibility. But when lives, systems, or futures are at stake, strategy becomes a moral responsibility. Think of the doctor who tells a patient just enough truth to inspire change, but not enough to paralyze them. Or the leader who reframes a harsh reality to protect morale while still guiding the team forward. Are they lying, or are they serving a higher outcome? Ethical strategy asks, what ripple does my decision create? What system does it affect? Who benefits, not just now, but 5 moves ahead? Because real power isn't about domination. It's about the courage to make decisions that matter, even when they're hard to explain to those who only see the surface. So no, this isn't manipulation. This is mastery with integrity. And in a world where so many wield power carelessly, your ability to lead with both insight and conscience, that's what makes you dangerous, in the best way. Let's address the question that lingers beneath every conversation about influence. Isn't this manipulation? Not if you understand the difference between deception and strategy. Manipulation seeks to control for selfish gain, usually through lies, fear, or coercion. Strategic influence, on the other hand, is rooted in clarity, intention, and impact. It's the art of guiding outcomes ethically by understanding what people truly need, even when they can't articulate it themselves. Machiavelli famously said, "The end justifies the means." It's a quote often misunderstood, used to defend cruelty, but real students of power know it isn't a license to harm. It's a call to consider consequences. Because ethics at their core are not static. They are situational. Rigid morality is a luxury for those with no responsibility. But when lives, systems, or futures are at stake, strategy becomes a moral responsibility. Think of the doctor who tells a patient just enough truth to inspire change, but not enough to paralyze them. Or the leader who reframes a harsh reality to protect morale while still guiding the team forward. Are they lying, or are they serving a higher outcome? Ethical strategy asks, what ripple does my decision create? What system does it affect? Who benefits, not just now, but 5 moves ahead? Because real power isn't about domination. It's about the courage to make decisions that matter, even when they're hard to explain to those who only see the surface. So no, this isn't manipulation. This is mastery with integrity. And in a world where so many wield power carelessly, your ability to lead with both insight and conscience, that's what makes you dangerous. In the best way, there comes a moment, if you're paying attention, when you realize you've spent most of your life as a piece, not the player. You followed the rules, you did the work. You waited to be noticed. You moved when told, paused when expected, and believed that if you were just good enough, the right people would move you forward. But what if I told you the game was never designed for you to win by waiting? What if the board itself was shaped by those who learned the rules only so they could rewrite them? Becoming the player means something radical. It means you no longer wait for permission. You understand perception is a tool, not a trap. You see conflict not as chaos, but as an ecosystem to be managed. You identify the keystone people in the room and move with surgical intent. You shape beliefs without ever demanding agreement. And you do it all, not with force, but with fluency in the language. Most people don't even know they're speaking the subconscious. Most people will live and die as pawns, chasing validation in a game they never learned how to play. But you've seen behind the curtain now. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Because this isn't just about influence. It's about freedom. The freedom to move with purpose, to speak with precision, to lead without shouting, to win without needing applause. So let me ask you, are you still waiting for someone to move you? Or are you ready to move the board? Because the world doesn't need more pieces. It needs players bold enough to shape the game. And now you know how